Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, we've got an incredible interview with our friend Thomas Haviland, retired United States Air Force major, but he's now conducted these embalming studies. What have embalmers been seeing when they do the embalmings on dead people? And the answer is they're seeing weird, strange clots. These unusual clottings seem to be linked very close to the continued use of the COVID vaccine. They saw it a lot with COVID, and now they're seeing it when people are vaccinated. What really happens during embalmings? We've been watching some pieces of videos where these guys tell all separate, believe it or not, from Tom's investigative research and reporting on these surveys. Now, in 1986, as you know, Congress passed the National Childhood Vaccination, or it's an injury compensation fund. So, hey, they don't need to worry about when a vaccine goes wrong. The taxpayers will pay for it. They paid over $5 billion when this stuff happens. So Liberty Counsel, our dear friends over at lc.org, is leading an effort to hold pharmaceutical companies accountable, seeking support through donations and advocacy action to change the laws that are protecting these companies right now. Sadly, this happened in the Reagan era, but it's continuing under Trump. Trump fast-tracked the vaccines. Now we find out all kinds of people are dying from the vaccines. Well, not a word from the Trump administration, but it gets more strange as we go. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. You told me that the flu was so different, crazy different. Well, then why do we got to have a flu vaccine? And then why is that vaccine then protected so the taxpayers pay when it goes south, not the drug companies, you see? Well, there's a new study conducted by the Cleveland Clinic. I don't know if they're reputable, but they claim to be. Everybody's thought they were super reputable, right? Now led by Dr. I don't know how to say this guy's name, Nabin K. Shrestha, I think is how you say it, found a, quote, 27% higher hazard ratio for flu contraction among vaccinated individuals compared to those who are unvaccinated. During this period, they say 82.1% in their study of the cohort was vaccinated with a trivalent inactivated vaccine. Now listen carefully to the final detail of this. The study, published as a, quote, preprint on, I don't know how to say this thing, it's Med RX and then IV, it's like, 14 or whatever it is Roman numeral wise. But here's the point. It suggested that vaccinations did not provide the intended protection and rather increased susceptibility to the flu. So they've been telling you for decades, get your flu shots. If you don't, how dare you? Doctors have mocked patients that won't take the vaccine. It goes on and on. If you say you're not for the vaccine, they say you're psychotic. How dare you? You're a conspiracy theorist, delusionary. And now we find out now that not only does the flu vaccine cause the flu, it's overwhelming. And we're not talking about some weird group making the claim. We're talking about the Cleveland Clinic, ladies and gentlemen. So now what happens? Well, when you take the jab from the flu, ain't no harm, no foul. The taxpayers will bail out the meltdown. Pharmaceutical companies off the hook. You're seeing the same thing with COVID continuing to this day. When are they going to admit the truth? Study after study vindicates what RFK Jr. has been saying. But for me, RFK Jr. seems to be, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the Scarlet Pimpernel. He's everywhere but nowhere there. Tom, I don't know what's going on with this, but it's getting stranger by the minute, if you ask me.
The good news, though, is, Sam, is that the American public is getting wise. They're hearing about these studies now, and they're hearing word of mouth from other people. We believe that less than 10% of American adults now are taking the COVID-19 vaccines, which is terrific, because about 80% of American adults over the age of 18 took the first 2 jabs way back in 2021. So most Americans figured it out. They stopped taking them. They said, hey, it's not stopping me from catching COVID or transmitting it anyways. They've heard about these nasty side effects. And now we're starting to see bad information coming out about flu shots, not just from the American public, like you say, but from reputable sources like the Cleveland Clinic. They did a similar study on the COVID vaccine a few years ago, and tracked their 55,000 healthcare workers at the Cleveland Clinic system, and saw that every time they got another dose of the COVID vaccine, they became more susceptible to catching COVID. The same way you just mentioned, as they get flu shots, they're becoming more susceptible to getting the flu. So people are starting to wonder now, why am I taking this shot if it's not stopping me from getting the flu or catching COVID? So this has actually been a good thing for the American public. It's been a wake-up call. COVID started it, and now now Americans are starting to catch on. And in fact, a lot of parents are actually starting to doubt the childhood vaccine schedule. And there's been some talk about dialing back the number of vaccines on the childhood schedule to mirror countries more like Denmark, which only have, I think, about a dozen or so jabs by the time a kid's 18 years old, as opposed to the 72 vaccines that the American system recommends for children here in America from the age of birth to the age of 18.
Yeah, so to do that, you would have to get rid of about 80% of the vaccines that we currently get in America to be similar, right, to Denmark.
Correct. But a lot of that would be annual flu shots and periodic COVID shots. That is a large bulk of those. But they're talking about, and we also saw recently the ACIP committee, at the CDC, led by Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Retzef Levy, Dr. Kurt Milhound, recommended not to give children the Hep B vaccine on day one of birth, which doesn't make any sense because it's a sexually transmitted disease or through dirty needles, and infants don't need that. So as long as you screen the mother for Hep B, and the mother does not have Hep B, there's no reason to give an infant a Hep B vaccine on day one of birth. So we're moving in the right
direction. If you want filthy lucre and you want to deceive the American people, and so that's the big drug racket. Vaccines and drugs and these pharmaceutical companies out of control. I mean, just think how many advertisements of drug commercials are on TV everywhere now. It used to be to where they couldn't advertise on TV like that, but now they can blatantly do so. And they have this fine print at the bottom of the screen, or this little, hey, your doctor, whatever, and blah, 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 and then they're done, and they just basically tell you, the bottom line is nobody has any accountability when you take this if it all goes south. And now they're promoting these lose-weight drugs, which we don't know the side effects thereof either. Now, the interesting thing is what President Trump's doing is, instead of trying to stop this drug cartel, that's what I'm going to call it. I have the right to my opinion, and there it is. It's a drug cartel, cloaked as a pharmaceutical health company backed by the Food and Drug Administration and everything else. It's a scam, folks. That's the problem. Well, if you don't believe me, we'll get into the details here. But Trump wants to make these drugs cheaper. What happens when you make drugs cheaper, Tom? I'm not very smart. Help me.
Well, cheaper is one. In fact, recently, to me, there was an admission just a few weeks ago. Pfizer decided to offer the blood thinner Eliquis for free to Medicaid patients.
Ooh, yeah.
And I thought that was interesting, right? Because why would they give up the billions and billions of dollars they could make by having people pay for Eliquis? Maybe it's a punishment. Maybe they understand that the fact that their COVID vaccines have caused these blood clotting problems, which require that people to go on Eliquis as a blood thinner. So this may be their way of silently admitting that their COVID vaccines have caused a blood clotting problem by allowing people to take Eliquis for free without having to admit that they did damage with the COVID vaccines.
And what the lawyers say behind the scenes is, hey, we created this under Donald's fast track program. The government already has an injury compensation fund in place for this very reason. We've done our very best. And so now we're going to offer this for free. And that way you don't sue us. And even if you do, we got something in our back pocket. We realized our mistake. We're already basically making up for it or paying back society for it. Therefore, no harm, no foul. Hold on, though. It gets worse. Now the Wall Street Journal, I don't know if they're more than the Cleveland Clinic or whatever else, but the Wall Street Journal is now reporting. It's an analysis of a 2022 Medicare data study, okay? And it shows that out of 46 million seniors who are enrolled in, quote, Medicare's drug benefit program, listen to this, out of 46 million of them, 7.6 million of them were prescribed more than 8 medications concurrently for over 90 days or more. Now it gets worse. Nearly 4 million of these seniors were prescribed 10 or more overlapping medications, and over 490,000, so virtually 500,000, were taking 15 medications simultaneously or more. 3.6 million of those prescribed 8 or more drugs at a time were taking at least one drug that were flagged by the American Geriatrics Society as risky for older adults to take in the first place. I kid you not. We'll talk about it more with Tom Haviland. We're talking about what's going on in the drug world, the vaccine world. It is a scandal bigger than Minnesota, baby. I'm telling you right now. You're watching the one and only Liberty Roundtable live.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
All right, you want to learn more about Tom Haviland's work? Go to laurakasner.substack.com. You can check it all out and see what's going on. We're talking about the drug racket in the United States, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, it's a criminal cartel, but Donald wants to make the drugs cheaper. Just so you know what happens when you make drugs cheaper, then more people take drugs or use drugs. And I know these are pharmaceutical drugs, and so we believe they're safe and effective. But the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has failed us miserably. You got the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund going on. They're trying to make it apply to more drugs, by the way. That's where they're going or where they're headed with this. But when Trump makes these medications cheaper, you kind of get really worried about this. Well, listen carefully to what I'm saying. This Wall Street Journal study, okay, basically says, hey, you got all these people on drugs, 46 million seniors, 8+ million of them are on 8 drugs or more. Some of the drugs are even warned against by the Geriatric Seniors Association. Now, listen, they also say this, and I find this fascinating. If you're on 10 or more medications, that's 4 million of these were on 10 or more medications. Think about that. Well, the rest of the study says when they reduced the medications for these people, then a lot of the falls stopped happening. A lot of the deaths related to those falls stopped happening. We can go on and on the repercussions of this. This is the Wall Street Journal telling you this. This is the Cleveland Clinic telling you this. And now me and Tom are backing this up with Tom's research, and we have external or independent embalmers doubling down with the same information. Where the heck is Bobby Kennedy, Tom?
Yeah, he tries to put that message out. And by the way, I don't want to bash all drugs. There are a lot of excellent drugs out there that are needed by people in order to maintain their lifestyle, survive.
Well, of course, sure, I agree.
Yeah,
but when we
you're
have
absolutely
literally
right,
8
Sam.
million people on 8 drugs or more, or whatever, 4 million people on 10 drugs being warned against, and then we're going to vaccinate them too?
Exactly. We are definitely an over-medicated society, and we need to get back to being a more healthy society, which means, but the whole incentive system, Sam, is perverse, right? It pushes more medications and pills as the solution to every problem, which is unfortunate and wrong. So it's
medication should be used on occasion, but when you start to have enough medications where people are on 8 and 10 of them, plus you're going to vaccinate them all the time for the flu, plus you're going to vaccinate them for COVID, plus you're going to. And then we have this geriatrics association going, yeah, some of those drugs we really recommend against because they're dangerous. They increase the number of falls that seniors have, and they call them risky for older adults to take, but yet they're on those. And you start to go, okay, wait a minute. How many deaths do we have due to this over-medicated population, right?
Correct. And, and we were very naive when people started taking the COVID vaccines back in 2021 because they were not well-tested drugs. They were rushed to market, Operation Warp Speed, right? And people are suffering now with side effects from the vaccines. One of the interesting, I took a look at a paper that came out in October, and it was out of Israel, actually. And they looked at 22 pregnant women, and they checked their blood and their placentas for mRNA from the vaccine in it. And would you believe 11 of the 16 pregnant women who took at least 2 doses of Pfizer had mRNA from the vaccine in both their blood and their placenta, Sam, as little as 25 days after their last injection to as much as 250 days after their last injection. So it showed us that the big pharma, Fauci, Birx, they were lying to us. Remember, they told us that the vaccine would stay in your upper arm and just stay in that location, your deltoid muscle. Well, we know now that it goes to family jewel.
Not only goes to every part of your body, but it crosses the blood-brain barrier. It crosses the barrier to the baby. It does all these things, right?
Yes, and also we were also told that mRNA would dissipate in 2 days to a week after just produce enough spike protein to elicit an immune response to get you ready for COVID. Or they're finding it in women's placentas and blood 250 days after their last injection. So another lie, right? It's continuing to produce the spike protein. But what was really interesting in that same study, Sam, was there were 6 women in Israel they had in that cohort who were unvaccinated. And they found trace amounts of the COVID vaccine in the blood of 3 of those 6 women. Isn't that interesting?
And you got to ask the question, were they vaccinated without being told, number one? Because we hear a lot of times when they put people under for surgery, sometimes if you're not vaccinated, they'll just go ahead and vaccinate you too. Now, those are rumors thus far, but you got to kind of wonder when they lie about everything else. The problem is these people can't be trusted. So either one, they might have been vaccinated without knowing it, or 2, shedding becomes now more real, right?
That is correct. I believe they were shed on because in that same study, they also looked at 4 men who had taken the vaccines, and they showed the mRNA from the vaccine in their sperm. So what I think happened in the case of those 3 women who were unvaccinated that still had trace amounts of mRNA from the vaccine in their placenta and blood, that probably came from a partner who got them pregnant who was vaccinated. So they probably got shed on by their male partner. Very unfortunate.
A little more than shed on, but I know what you're saying.
But this goes to show the problem. And there are people out there. There's actually a company out there called Safe Blood, where they actually match unvaccinated blood recipients with vaccinated donors. If somebody's going to go in for an operation and you want to make sure that you get unvaccinated blood as opposed to COVID vaccinated blood, you can be matched up with somebody in your local area as a blood donor. So I expect to see those kind of services get more popular in the future as people start to realize that we probably have a tainted national blood supply, and people are. In fact, the gentleman who runs that organization actually told me that now actually even COVID vaccinated people, when they go in for procedures, want to get pure blood or unvaccinated blood as well because they don't want to exacerbate their any symptoms they may already have with more spike protein being introduced into their body.
Well, and the problem is so far, and this is why Tom's studies are so important and why these embalmers speaking out are so important and why the Cleveland Clinic speaking out about some of these things is so important. Because, folks, understand this. I don't know that you can get a clean blood supply. Number one, you can't trust them. Even if you ask for it, you don't know that you'll really get it. Number one. Number two, the medical establishment is really hostile towards whenever you bring up anything that's kind of against the, quote, recommended deal. You know, I remember when I went to the hospital with COVID, I wouldn't take the vaccine, and the doctor virtually refused to help me. Now, I don't know if you know how the laws work, but if you bring up something that could help you and the doctor doesn't take it, he can be held liable. So I needed something for cough, and I needed something, and I said, what can I do for a cough? And he's like, oh, just go get a prescription somewhere. Don't worry, just get whatever. I'm like, no, I don't think that's strong enough. That won't make a difference. And he looked at me and he goes, what do you recommend?
Oh, wow.
And, well, here's the good part. I have people in my family that are medically knowledgeable. And they told me, ask your doctor for a thing called Teflon pearls. And so I smiled and I went, what if you give me Teflon pearls? He goes, that's actually a great idea. I'll do that. Well, the reason he changed his mind so quick is because now it was on the record. And if anything happens to me and he ignores, recommendation. So the hostility is still there big time, Tom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you want to go back to the interview that Dana Goodell did with Bob Sinnott, we can continue on from where we left off. There's a few more interesting things they say in that interview. And you'll see that they talk about the fact that this is a taboo subject amongst the
all right, let's go ahead and watch here, then we'll talk about it. Here's the continuation.
Okay.
Good friends that are embalmers. One of them is going to be in the Iowa convention next week, and I know it's going to be brought up, and I stay away from the fireworks.
Yeah, well, we both, if you're a funeral director, there's even Facebook groups that we all can be a part of, and we all ask. It's a great thing where you're supposed to be able to ask each other questions.
Right.
But whenever it comes to the COVID stuff, just like everything, it's way too political, and things just take a turn instantly.
It goes south real fast. It really does.
And that's why I also cannot wait for these tests to be done. I didn't realize they were going to be out of the country. They're doing it, but to get the results on that.
Couldn't get a doctor in the United States to test.
No kidding. Wow. So, and I'm not at all saying.
I'm not either. But I'm just.
I know. We all saw big clots, and I'm not saying it was from COVID or from a vaccine,
right?
Because I don't know.
No.
But it was definitely odd during that time. So
we still see them.
Yep. Sure.
And I've kind of gotten a nasty little habit as a funeral director.
We can pause there.
If I see
pause that.
If I know
we'll come back to that after the break. We want to talk about this just a little bit more, though. So the interesting thing about this is they're blatantly telling you, hey, it's a death sentence to speak out about this. There's places where we can talk about it, but nobody dares to do so. Tom?
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Like I said, we said at the very beginning, we have this epidemic, and this epidemic is an epidemic of courage. We have an epidemic of these white fibrous clots going on all over the world caused by the vaccine, but we have a worse epidemic, and that's the epidemic of cowardice to want to talk about it and reveal that it's happening.
And when you say they're from the vaccine, you're probably correct. But the reason that those guys are saying they don't know what it's from is because if they do speak out, then their licenses for being a funeral director or embalming might be threatened. They're like, hey, you're not a physician. We're going to sue you. You're making claims without evidence. In fact, all the evidence is against what you're saying. And they go like that. And so these people are just simply being as cautious as they can be. But they're trying to stand up, right? They're trying to tell the truth, but they're fearful in doing so much so to where it's hard for people to put the dots together on this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we'll play a little more of this video. We'll talk about it more. Tom Haviland's with me. We've got a crisis in America in the medical world, the likes to which you ain't never, ever seen in your lifetime. It makes Minnesota look like child's play when it comes to fraud. That's my opinion to which I'm entitled. Hang tight. You're watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Could the new year bring an end to the war in Ukraine? President Trump is sounding cautiously optimistic. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports on the president's weekend meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky.
Donald Trump hosted the Ukrainian leader for talks in Florida, declaring that Ukraine and Russia are closer than ever before to a peace deal. However, both leaders acknowledge that difficult issues remain, including whether Russia can keep Ukrainian territory it controls. President Trump insisted that both countries want peace, but warned that negotiations could still break down. After their meeting, the two presidents called European leaders to discuss the latest developments. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Today, President Trump is hosting Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago. The two leaders are discussing implementation of Phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. China once again flexing its military muscle off Taiwan, with its Army and Navy conducting live fire drills off the self-governed island that Beijing claims as its own.
Officials in Beijing say the purpose of this move is to warn against what it calls separatist and external interference forces. But Taiwanese officials say they're placing their forces on alert. They also call the Beijing government the biggest destroyer of peace. The drills come after Beijing expressed anger at American arms sales to Taiwan.
Correspondent Andrew Stewart says Taiwan is warning that the Chinese exercises will affect commercial air travel. Tens of millions of Americans are under winter storm advisories, watches, or warnings as a potent winter storm moves across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, with the Northeast next in line. Along with lots of snow, the storm is packing fierce winds and dangerously cold temperatures. The Dow down 227 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Career changers, including veterans and active duty service members. Your transition starts here. Go from GI to IT in a matter of months. Become a certified cyber warrior with training at My Computer Career. Cybersecurity specialists are in high demand, offering IT pros great opportunities and a rewarding lifestyle while protecting our people, liberty, and treasured institutions from cyber threats. Deploy your career in IT today at mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner.
VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
My name is Whitney Allen. I am a widow. My husband Ryan died. We never thought in a million years we'd have to use life insurance. The unexpected happened. With Ethos, it is so fast and easy. It's 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. No medical exams, and you can get up to $3 million worth of coverage through Ethos.
Get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ETHOS.com/term.
Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began. Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Haviland with us, doing a great job breaking down his fourth embalming study about blood clots that are very strange, fibrous blood clots. It's crazy, folks, when you study it. What really happens during embalming? Funeral directors tell all. All I'm telling you is this is a crazy thing. And we're weaving these other drug stories in with it and the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund and all this stuff into it so that you guys understand this is a huge cartel cabal. Those are my words, nobody else's. And it's my opinion to which I'm entitled to. Okay, these people are out of control. Seniors are on drugs like psychotic crazy. Now they're putting all the young people that want to lose weight on drugs so you can look sexy and be whatever. Everybody's on drugs for every reason under the sun, and the pharmaceutical companies are out of control. Lawfare and pharmaceutical companies are going to destroy this country. Now Donald Trump's doing nothing about it. In fact, he's making drugs cheaper. Bobby Kennedy's trying to do something about it, but he's getting shut down, and I don't know, he's like the Pimpernel, can't find the guy anywhere. I don't know what's going on with that. But here's the point I want to make very clear. I don't mean to attack any of these people. The reason that I'm speaking out so clear, so bold, so direct, so plainly is because the American people need to understand. And then what we need is people all over the country to stand up and say this has got to stop. Now, I'm not here to attack President Trump or Bobby Kennedy or anybody. I'm here to say we've got a window, folks, of opportunity to turn this around and go for solutions. And if we don't take this opportunity now, we're in serious trouble, because when you start mixing these vaccines that aren't really vaccines, they're mRNA protocols, they're gene manipulating, DNA, RNA manipulating protocols. You start doing that plus mixing 8, 10, 15 drugs into people's cocktails every day. Then you start to mess with the food, and it's genetically modified food and this and that. You are playing scientific Russian roulette, to say the least. You're literally, instead of putting one bullet in the chamber, let's say you got a 6-shooter, you're putting 5 bullets in the chamber and leaving one empty and going, I think my odds are not so bad. Tom, am I overstating this issue?
No, Sam, it's Russian roulette, especially with these COVID-19 vaccines. Like I said, they were not thoroughly tested. There's lots of side effects, not just these white fibrous clots, but myocarditis, turbo cancers, nerve damage, miscarriages. In fact, let's continue with the last minute and a half or so of Dana Goodell's conversation with Bob Sennett, and we'll talk about that afterwards.
All right, here's more of this video. This is riveting what they have to say. They first told you, hey, this is a disaster. We're seeing the blood clots. We see it everywhere. Independent comparing to Tom's research, but the same conclusions. And then they say, but hey, we don't dare speak out on this because, man, it's crazy if we do. They speak out, but they say they don't know what's causing it. But then they even tell you more. This is a tell-all. It's interesting. Here it is.
He says, boy, I pulled a couple of those clots out again. I'll ask the family, well, did mom or dad ever suffer from COVID? No. And then I asked the question, were they vaccinated? Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I let it drop.
Right.
I just let it go.
Yep.
And anytime you mess with mRNA, you're asking for trouble.
Sure.
And that's that. I went to my own personal physician for my Medicare check. And I go once a year for him. And I was sitting there, and he had COVID. I knew he did. And I said, Bryce, do I need to take a COVID booster? And he looked me in the face. He says, number one, do you want to live or do you want to die? I said, well, I'd kind of like to stick around for a while. My life insurance is still good. And he said, there's a reason this clinic does not administer COVID vaccinations. And that was the end of the conversation.
Wow.
You can pause it there.
Pause. See, they know what
I
we
think
know,
he
folks. It's a
saw the
scam. And I've been telling you since 2020, right when this stuff came out, right at the very start. You go back at podcasts and stuff and videos and audio and everything that I've done. We told you this was a sham. We told you this was disaster. We told you not to take the vaccines. Even back then, I was bold and clear and direct. It's not because I want to just be a contrarian. It's not because I'm a conspiracy theorist. It's because when you study the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund in 1986, you begin to understand these people have no brakes on their incentive to vaccinate and drug everyone. Zero. Everything points to you're protected. You can move forward with immunity. You don't have to do anything. The taxpayers will take care of it all. You can just, and so now they want vaccines for everything. I mean, what happens if we leave it unchecked and a Bobby Kennedy doesn't try to reduce it? If we don't compare ourselves to other nations that are reducing this stuff? Where would we be, folks? They'll put vaccinations in your food. They'll put vaccinations in your, I don't know, some kind of a spray or some kind of a, okay, they're putting fluoride in your water. We can go on and on and on. In fact, in other countries, you can eat wheat and not have a problem, even if you have some gluten problems in America, because their food isn't the same. They don't do what we do. And so it seems to me that all out food, drugs, vaccines, it's an assault on the American people to destroy the health of the American people for filthy lucre. I can't see it any different. Because here's the thing. I speak out about it, and instead of saying, Sam, let's talk about the scientific data, they say, you're a nutcase. You're a whack job. Let's ruin your career. Let's destroy your character. That's what they've done to doctors. That's why these folks that are embalmers and people at funeral homes don't want to speak out. They saw what happened to the frontline folks. Okay, this is serious, folks, and we better start to realize it quickly, because you can say the body can take 1 assault, 2 assaults, 3 assaults. You know, what happens when your body's assaulted at every turn? You got IT, you know, G5 and G4 and all this kind of stuff, right? And you combine that with the medical, you combine that with the vaccines, with the drugs, with the food, with the... And I don't mean to broaden this so much to where you can't see straight, but that seems to be all front assault, Tom.
Yeah, and Mr. Goodell's not the only one who's noticed this as well. I've been in touch with other embalmers who are both in a unique position. They both embalm and they're a funeral director, so they get a chance to speak with the families of the deceased. And the several that I've talked to also say every time they find the white fibrous clots, they then will ask the family, hey, did your loved one take the COVID vaccine? And they'll say yes, 100% of the time. So I know that's anecdotal, but you start to get enough anecdotal build up, and then you start to understand what's going on here. So, you know,
my response is it's anecdotal because we can't get the hard evidence because no one's willing to stand up and work together. We could stand up and work together and conduct a true investigation and get to the bottom of this if enough people would.
I have begged the CDC and the FDA for the last 4 years, Sam, to take over what I've been doing, right? I'm a retired Air Force major, a data analyst. I just did this because I retired and had the time to do it. But I shouldn't be doing this, right? The CDC and the FDA should have been running surveys with funeral directors, embalmers, vascular surgeons, endovascular specialists that work in what's called cath labs, because we know these things are being removed from living people as well. These white fibrous clots are showing up in the living as well. In fact, last March of 2024, I was put in touch with a endovascular specialist and cardiologist from Jacksonville, Florida, who admitted to me that he had been removing these white fibrous clots for the last 4 or 5 years from living patients as well. He actually sent me an email with what was a deep vein thrombosis. It was a white fibrous clot that he removed from a gentleman's leg that same day. So it's happening. But unfortunately, I got an email from that same endovascular specialist about a month later saying, Tom, I've been instructed to terminate communications immediately. Sorry for the inconvenience. So somebody in his hospital probably got to him, right? His administrator said, hey, shut up. Stop talking about this, or else we're going to go after your board certifications and your licenses. So that's what's happening, Sam. There's this hush-hushness, this quietness about this really critical, medical condition that's going on that most people are not aware of.
Well, not only are they not aware of it, but even if they're made aware of it, most people feel like they're sidelined, that they've been disenfranchised, they can't do anything about it. I mean, look, you're a senator like Rand Paul, and you're trying to take on Anthony Fauci. That should be the clearest case of anything that we know. I mean, Anthony literally admitted, yeah, I knew it came from a lab, but I told you that it came from a meat market because it was a better story. I didn't want to point to the lab. And then, it was accidentally leaked. I guess we got to admit that now. I believe, though, and this is just my opinion, Tom, but again, and they'll say, you have no evidence, Sam. And my response is, it's impossible when all the governments of the world are against you to get evidence. But I'm convinced it was released intentionally as well. Not only was it created in a lab, I believe it was released intentionally.
I tend to agree with you, Sam, because what went on in Wuhan, we think was very nasty. It looks like a culmination, actually, of decades of research, not just by the Chinese, but by the Soviets and by the Americans, too, to make viruses more, clot easier, evade the immune system more, and replicate faster. So
more virulent.
SARS-CoV-2 was probably a best of decades of research by the three major superpowers, unfortunately.
But I'm going to tell you the reason. I'm going to tell you the reason, though, that I believe it's intentional, that I don't think you can argue against very easily. I don't think anybody can. And here it is. If it was not intentional, when doctors like Pierre Corey and other credible physicians decided they had solutions, instead of embracing those solutions, they literally mocked and destroyed the character of anybody who advocated for it, from doctors who knew the truth and who had solutions and ready-made, answers, to guys like me that just took ivermectin and got attacked. Why would they attack all the solution providers that actually had ways that could work? Hang tight.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcasts at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
The money.
All right, back with you live. We're talking about, with Thomas Haviland, we're talking about this incredible blood clot survey that he's done with funeral homes and embalmers and stuff like that. It's the fourth one he's done, and it's consistent. But I maintain to you that they knew COVID was a sham. I believe it was created in the lab and intentionally released. And you could say, Sam, wow, you have no evidence for that. And I'm going to say, you know what? From a factual scientific point of view, you're probably correct. But the problem is, with all the governments are against you of the world, you'll never get the proof that you need. So forget that. You can say I have no proof, but it's impossible for me to get proof. But I will say this. If they were genuinely caught by surprise by this virus like they claim, and if they really don't want it to spread like they claimed and they're trying to stop it, you don't fast track an unknown mRNA technology vaccine. Okay? You don't play Russian roulette. You go back and say, hey, there's doctors that have created protocols that are actually working in the field. But what they did is they deplatformed those doctors. They attacked those doctors. They removed their licenses. They threatened anybody anywhere. You use horse poop. Well, ivermectin works, folks. Joe Rogan's here to tell you that, and I'm here to tell you that. And so are hundreds of doctors, on frontline doctors across the country. They put everybody on remdesivir. And in my opinion, remdesivir and a vent is almost certain death. I say almost because I have a friend that literally came off a vent, thanks to the power of God. But I digress. My point is, so they're attacking everyone who comes up with a solution. Why would they do that? And they're saying, oh, well, that solution's not safe and effective or proven. Neither are the solutions that you guys are proposing. But that didn't seem to matter. And so why would they lie about it? If they really wanted the truth, they'd be like, hey, it was in a lab. There was an accident that occurred, and we've got the answers. We've got doctors that can help everyone. Okay, another example. Why would this doctor be so hostile to me when I wasn't vaccinated? He literally was going to let me go home without any cough medicine of any kind. I had to put on the record, hey, Teflon pearls. And then he went, oh, good idea. And, okay, I went home. Well, it turns out that I had a licensed concentrator for oxygen. Because I had some lung issues before that, because I got COVID before without knowing it. Anyway, it's a long story. But I told the doctor that I had oxygen at home. He went livid. Where'd you get oxygen? That's illegal. Do you have a prescription for that? Do you? And I just said, relax, buddy. Listen, I've got it. I had a prescription for it. I still have it, and I'm going to use it in this scenario. They finally let me go home with my own oxygen. But why are they getting mad at people? Because they have a way to stay out of the hospital and stay at home on oxygen. Why do they? I mean, this is insane. And so if you want evidence, why would they attack everyone coming up with a solution and ruin their entire lives? Credible people who want to help, who want to make a difference. You don't do that if you really are caught by surprise by this thing. But yet we find out Fauci lied about the whole origins. We found out that, okay, it goes on and on. And what would we find out if we really got the pay dirt? I don't know. But I know this. If you're really surprised by it and you really want to stop it and you really want answers and cures, you don't shut down people who have examples of situations that work. I was literally in bed for 30 days. As soon as I took ivermectin, I was up within a day. Okay, wow. Now you can say, well, Sam, that's just your opinion. You ate horse poop and wow, it worked for you, but it doesn't work. Okay, that's bogus. They know full well. Why are they suppressing the real answers and solutions? And the only thing I can come back to is population control and power trip. If everybody starts getting well, you can't shut down society. You can't, I mean, it goes on and on, but it gets more sinister the more you dig, Tom.
It does, Sam, and you're absolutely right. There were some useful drugs out there. Ivermectin was one. Hydroxychloroquine was another. They knew, though, that if those were useful therapeutics, then technically they would not be able to get what's called emergency use authorization for their COVID vaccines. So they had to poo-poo ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and talk them down in order to get their EUA approval for their COVID vaccines. And they wanted that only one solution of the vaccine. The good news is, though, there are solutions now that scientists, independent scientists, are coming up with for different things, including these white fibrous clots. Before they become these white fibrous clots, Sam, they're what's known as microclots. They're smaller, than they aggregate into these larger macroclots. Once they become these, you cannot get rid of them through any kind of medication, not even the best clot-busting drugs like tissue plasminogen activator. They actually have to be physically removed in what's called a cath lab, where they use flexible catheters, doctors do, to either suck the clot out, scrape it out, or lasso it and pull it out. But when they're still microclots, very small in the capillaries, they can be broken up by natural supplements like nattokinase. There was a recent paper that came out that showed in a Petri dish they were able to dissolve about 84% of the microclots in that Petri dish using the natural supplement nattokinase. That's part of Dr. Peter McCullough's protocol of nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin, that's used to treat patients to help remove and detox and get the spike protein out of the body.
So all they've done is tried to destroy poor Peter's life and career.
I know. And they've come up with no alternative solutions themselves. That's what's bizarre about the whole thing.
And that's my point, is why would they do that if they've got something better? Pardon the pun, show and tell. If you don't, then, but yet, see, they continue to ridicule and mock and play games and everything else. Let me point to the last issue before we got to go. I believe vitamin C is critical for all kinds of reasons. But there's a guy by the name of Daryl Austin who writes for USA Today now about the importance of vitamin C during cold and flu season. Now, I know they say it's way different than the COVID, but wow, we learned that vitamin C helped with COVID, too, with a variety of other natural health and healing solutions. Vitamin C is touted for immune support and can lower inflammation, protect cells, and boost iron absorption and more. The water-soluble vitamin cannot be stored in large amount by the body, so you have to, take it continually. They say, hey, if you have deficiency of vitamin C, you get fatigue, weakened immunity, slow wound healings, joint pain, bleeding gums, possible eventually scurvy, High-risk groups for deficiency: smokers, individuals with gastrointestinal issues, those with chronic inflammatory issues. Vitamin C also aids in white blood cell function, reducing, they say, cold symptoms, duration, and severity. Foods rich in vitamin C, they talk about that. At the end of the day, Tom, they say, hey, you know what? Vitamin C makes a huge difference to protect against or help you reduce the symptoms of and the effects of flu and colds. But they want to say, oh, no, you're crazy. That has nothing to do with COVID. Really, Tom?
It's a cheap solution. They don't like cheap solutions. They like expensive solutions, Sam. Like I said, when I was a kid, it was well known that you drink some orange juice, get that vitamin C in you. Also, vitamin D is important too. They found a lot of the patients coming in that were having problems with COVID were very low on vitamin D as well. So, get that sunlight. Remember they were telling us to stay indoors and not gather outside in groups and stuff. That was probably a bad advice, right? Because you should have been getting out and getting some sunlight, getting some vitamin D.
Yeah. So how, if this was not intentional, why would they attack everyone like I've already brought up? But then why would they also shut down and go the opposite? They didn't just attack everybody and whatever. They went the opposite. If it was good to be outside, they said stay inside. If it was good to this, they said do that. If it was good to that, they said do this. Everything they said was the opposite of the truth.
It might have been a psyop trying to prepare us just to see how compliant is the humanity going to be. And unfortunately, I think we failed that test as humanity. About 80% of the people bent the knee, took the jabs right away, fell into it, and people put on the mask and they complied. You saw very few people going without the masks. So unfortunately, I think humanity failed that test, and it may be setting us up for some kind of something to happen in the future here. So I'm hoping that America.
Yeah, they're calling it disease X, Tom. They're calling it disease X. They're just waiting to fill in the blanks.
Well, I hope that we are more skeptical next time around, Sam, and people will say no to these things, right? They say, no, I'm not going to wear your darn mask this time. I'm not going to take this shot without studying it first.
See, they told everybody to wear masks. That made it worse. They told everybody to stay indoors. That made it worse. They told everybody, it just goes on and on. 6 feet, hey, that's what you got to have. And then they said, oh, well, that's not even really a scientific reality. It's insane.
Don't go to church.
Admissions. Yeah, but yet you can go to a bar and have a lap dance. No problem with that. You know what I'm saying? See, it's crazy town, people. And that's what I mean. If you want proof, that's the best proof that I can give you right now, is they're doing exactly the opposite. If you want to learn about Tom's work, he's partnered with an incredible writer, Laura Kasner.substack.com, to learn more. And we're going to have Tom back because he continues to dig on this. This issue's not going away. It's up to us, my fellow Americans, to keep it alive. So please do me a favor. It's not about promoting Sam's material. It is about promoting this interview because it really gets to the bottom of some very, very serious things indeed. We're making drugs cheaper. Everybody's on drugs, by golly. If you're overweight, you got to be on that. If you got a heart problem, blood problem, if you got psychiatric issues, it doesn't matter. You got to be on a drug for something. Everybody should be on medications and vaccines all the time. See, and it's a scam. It's a drug cartel that's got to stop. Donald Trump called the cartels. He said that they were terrorist organizations. Could the drug cartels be terrorist organizations too? Oh, yeah, the illicit drug ones. What about the legitimate drug ones backed by your Food and Drug Administration? What about the ones backed by Anthony Fauci who got caught literally lying on the stand and there's no accountability for him? These things are serious, Tom. Last word to you.
These mRNA drugs in particular, Sam, are very dangerous, and I recommend people do not take them. Thanks for having me on the show.
Amen. Don't take the jab, folks. The kill shot ain't good. I'm telling you right now. Now, you can say I'm crazy, but you go study and talk to some of these doctors and some of these medical professionals and talk to these embalmers. And across the board, honesty does come out when you get with the right people. And that's the scary part. We got to wake America up to this reality. It's difficult. I know. I get it. Because it's just overwhelming. It makes you feel like there's no solutions. The solution is we, the people, standing up for God, family, country. The issue, ladies and gentlemen, is honesty. Thank you, Tom Haviland. I'm Sam Bushman with another Liberty Roundtable Live, hard-hitting news that networks refuse to use. Delivery for you. How's that? Share it with your loved ones. God save us all.